Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Kintoki Rider. Now, Kintoki Rider is a very strong welfare from back in the day that's going to be returning with the Evocation / Pilgrimage Festival. You're going to have to use your Evocation leaves in order to exchange for him, but he's going to be a unit that a lot of people should prioritize given his overall capability and again, how long he has been gone. There's going to be a ton of people that want him, and I'm going to try to show you guys why it is that they are and why you guys should actually be going for him. So to start out with, Kintoki is a welfare back from all the way in year 1. He came out with the Onigashima event, and he was really strong and really highly regarded ever since then. He has kind of aged a little bit over time, as there is still some major issues in his kind of overall capability, but I think you'll see the synergy that he has in his kit and why it is that people still really respect him as a unit. So Kintoki, being a welfare, is going to be a 4-star unit. Taking a look right now just at his raw stats here, he's got about 10k attack almost. And this is definitely a high value, definitely something you like to see for 4 stars, as it definitely allows him to punch pretty hard even outside of having his skills up. His HP is going to be his biggest concern, as it's rather anemic, and he doesn't really have any sort of hard survivability baked into his kit. So you're going to have to take care of him if you want him to go the distance, and make sure that you're bringing accompanying units that can kind of protect Kintoki. Looking at his attributes here, he is Earth attribute. He does have 198 star absorption. This is really high. It's almost 200%, and that's because that's exactly the average for riders. Riders normally have a really high star absorption and the highest in the game. His star generation, however, is only 9%, which may seem a little bit low, but his star generation as a unit is actually extremely good, and we'll make the case for that as we go through. His NP charge attack rate is absolutely absurdly good. It is 1.15. This is higher than a 1% NP charge attack rate and is one of the highest in the entire game. This is definitely going to help benefit him. It does make his card performance quite nice in tandem with the star generation and the high attack power, so it's something we're going to keep kind of calling back to throughout this review. His MP charge defense is the standard 3% there, so nothing to write home about, and his death rate is 40%, which is a little bit higher than the average, so you will want to watch out for anything that can death proc him. With regards to his alignments, he is lawful good, he is male gendered, and his traits are divinity, fairy tale servant, Genji, one of the rare ones that Tyra can actually abuse, hominide servant, humanoid, loved one, which is the Brynhilder's beloved trait, normal servant, 7 knight servant, which is the Draco trait, and weak to Inima Elish, which is Gilgamesh's trait. Taking a look at his deck here, he has actually a pretty balanced deck with double buster and double quick. This deck has aged really well thanks to Summer Skadi being able to boost and benefit buster cards in a quick composition. So he'll be the beneficiary of both Skadis, with again 4 out of his 5 cards being able to take advantage of their buffs. That being said, his hit counts are not too great on the Buster and Arts card, but again, the high NP gain rate will help him out in the Arts card's case, and the Quick card is the real standout here at 4 hits being above average. That being said, he does not have the Writing trait, so that does maybe limit the overall effectiveness of this card's somewhat slightly, but I think you can see he won't really need it once you get your hands on him. So taking a look at his active skills now, you can see he increases his own quick performance for 3 turns by up to 30%. Not a super strong steroid there, but definitely a quality one, with the, again, multi-turn duration allowing him to kind of go the distance and stay kind of strong throughout a multi-turn fight. The increase to his critical star generation rate is also 3 turns, mirroring the quick performance, and that will increase the critical star rate by 50%. So this is where having those 4 hit counts on the quick cards, having the high attack power, the high NP gain rate, it's really going to help those quick cards pop off for him. It's going to be something you're really going to be finding yourself wanting to do. Maybe pairing up his NP with, you know, additional follow-up cards so that he can potentially loop back under his card's own power. Taking a look at his second skill here, this is one of the big reasons that everybody really liked Kintoki back in the day. You see, early on in FGO's history, there were not a lot of units that actually had charge, and those that did usually didn't have it in great quantities. So Kintoki, being a welfare that came into the game with 50% charge baked into his kit, was just really a solid thing. It definitely helped his overall likability and usability for the players, and it's one of the reasons that still to this day he is very highly regarded in the community. His third skill is probably his weakest skill. It has an increase to his offensive debuff resistance for 3 turns, so it's going to help stop debuffs from landing. It does go over 100%, but this is again to help things like maybe debuff resist down and stuff like that that might be placed on him. So the scaling over 100% is not totally useless, but I will say for the majority of people, you're only going to need to take the skill at worst to 8. That being said, this does kind of have a disjointed aspect with it, because you would want to use this first aspect of the skill before he gets hit, since it's not a cleanse, it's just a prevention. And at that point, it's going to counteract the second part of the skill that you want to use after he gets hit, which is his heal of up to 3000 HP. It's again a kind of fairly strong heal. It is his overall survival mechanism, because he doesn't have a hard survival like a dodge or a guts or anything like that. But as a result, this is where I'm going to say you have a little bit of a tough choice to make for how to use the skill. Do you use it for healing, or do you use it for preventing debuffs? And it's really going to depend on the fight that you're in and what scenario you find yourself in. That being said, I would probably prioritize the heal in most cases, because better to keep the unit alive than to see them be dead and deal no DPS at that point rather than have it reduced. But at the end of the day, this is going to be something where, like I said, you're going to have to take units that can protect Kintoki if you're taking him the distance and trying to make him stay alive longer than, say, something like a 3-turn. Now, moving on to his passive skills, Kintoki really only has the divinity trait. Again, he is a welfare, so he's also pretty strong. They didn't feel the need to give him too many passive skills because his performance is already pretty good. He doesn't have anything like writing, as we already mentioned, and that kind of shows, but his card performance is already good even without writing. Divinity, though, will add some flat additional damage to all of his attacks. So if you guys think about it this way, it's an additional 150 attack on top of, say, a card doing 5k damage. It would now do 5,150 instead. So this is just a additional bonus for him, and it will be on all of his attacks that he does. With regards to his append skills, Kintoki actually can make use of all 5 append skills. I recommend the mana loading just so you have better starting charge scenarios and can use them with different craft essences. But at the end of the day, even his third append skill is actually really good, with it being anti-berserker. This is one that he can actually use effectively. It's just going to be more damage if he is facing a berserker, and that'll give you somebody that can kind of nuke berserkers a little bit harder for you. His first append, his extra attack performance, will benefit him quite nicely, as again, you may want to be finding yourself in scenarios where you pop his MP, follow it up with cards to try to loop him. So this will make the extra attack do more NP gain, more star generation, and yes, more damage. So it's definitely going to help that out quite a bit. His fourth append is going to increase his critical damage, definitely something that'll be welcome, but usually with the Skadis that you'll probably have accompanying him, it won't be too necessary to have this. That being said, it is an Evocation Festival unit. You will have plenty of coins, so you really can kind of just choose pretty much anything you want, unless you're feeling like you want to 120 him. That then will make you have to make a little bit more selective choices and kind of wait on bonding to kind of help you have enough. But still, the fourth append can also be useful for him. The fifth append skill is going to be more if you're trying to go the distance with Kintoki, where you maybe need him to get back to his skills that first time, because you know that he has to kind of go, you know, instead of 6 turns now, maybe 5 turns. So you really want him to get back to the skills again. Keep in mind, though, if you're taking him into those scenarios, you got to find a way to keep Kintoki alive. But as long as you do, this skill can definitely be useful for you. Now, taking a look at his Noble Phantasm, Kintoki's Noble Phantasm is actually really straightforward, but really effectively. It is a single target quick NP, and it is 4 hits. That being said, because it is a 4-hit NP, and it is single target, and it is quick, it doesn't have good NP gain. You're only going to see that he's going to kind of refund maybe like 9-10%, maybe even 11% if you're really spicy. So you're not going to get a whole lot of refund on the back end, and that's why using his cards to get him back in terms of charge is going to be super important for Kintoki. You guys can see the effect of his MP is that it'll just simply deal damage to one enemy. And thankfully, due to the fact that it is a quick MP, it has a little bit stronger firepower to it, but not appreciably much. Just something worth mentioning. His Overcharge effect, though, is the actual head turner, as it is extremely strong, and I still wonder what the devs were doing with that. Kintoki is someone that's going to work really well with Overcharge. It will increase his quick performance for 1 turn, activating first before the NP's damage goes out. That will increase his quick up by 10%. The tricky part here is that it scales 20% with every Overcharge rank that it has. So as you guys can see, it's 30% at 200, 50% at 300%, 70% at 400%, and a whopping 90% quick up at 500%. This means that you will want to put Kintoki second or third in any sort of chain sequence of noble phantasms to get him more Overcharge, or provide Overcharge buffs to him by way of Mystic Code, additional support unit, or Craft Essence. With that in mind, he can definitely use it to buff his damage output quite significantly, even though it is only the 1 turn, so it will not stack into additional turns. Still, this is one of the big things that can make Kintoki really effective if you play it right, and so it's definitely something you should be aware of and pay attention to. Now, with that in mind, let's talk Craft Essences. For Kintoki, if you're trying to make him maybe 3 turns, something like a good 60% C like Knights and Marines, or something like a 100% charge CE or 80% charge C like K-Scope can be really nice. Otherwise, you may want to start him out just with the most firepower you can get. Again, a good 50% charge C can work with his own 50% charge. So something like Holy Knight's Supper can be really effective for him, or even his own CE from his own event, Onigashima there, with Golden Sumo. And that can actually work for him quite nicely. And still, the king of all CEs in that regard, Black Grail, can be really good for him, but I would also recommend something like Rising Mud Rain, which can actually be really solid for him too, due to the Overcharge effect that it has and the ability to scale his Overcharge at least for 1 time. It'll be really good in 1-shot scenarios, maybe not so much in 3-turn scenarios and things like that. So now, with that in mind, let's go ahead and let's talk about Kintoki's charge scenarios. So Kintoki is a unit that, again, he's single target. We don't need him to necessarily 3-turn all of the time. We may be throwing him into a sort of multiple damage dealer type of setup, have him take out a single enemy wave, maybe in like the 2nd wave or something, or maybe just have him as backup firepower to an AoE that doesn't have the juice. Or we could maybe find a scenario where we do have a 1-1-1 type of node, either it being a challenge fight against a boss with break bars, or against some sort of scenario where it's a 90++ node and you just kind of need the firepower against it. In these sorts of scenarios, you will find Kintoki needing to maybe 3-turn, and that's where this sort of charge setup comes in. So we have on screen here a 1-1x Berserker type of setup. And this is going to be the scenario that we're proposing to you. So 1 being the amount of enemies in the 1st wave, 1 being the amount of enemies in the 2nd wave, and X being a we technically don't care how many enemies are in the 3rd wave. We're just trying to 3-turn loop. We'll take a look at this. You can see we'll start him out with his maxed out mana loading append, and then basically a non-MLB K-Scope, or you could use an MLB K-Scope and not use his append. And then from there, we're going to pop both the Summer Skadi buffs on top of him and fire off the NP the first time. He'll be at 100% charge already there, so he'll get that first NP out, and he'll only refund about 11% with double Summer Skadi. From there, we're going to go ahead and use both the Skadi charge skills on him. That's going to be 111% charge. But we're going to go ahead and rotate for Oberon already in turn 2 and pop Oberon's 20% charge. That's way overkill in the amount of charge that we need. But we're going to be kind of front loading the amount of damage output that he can do. So then we're going to fire off that NP. He's going to easily, crush whatever he's up against probably. And then you're going to end up in turn 3 where he's going to now have a 11% refund yet again, and you're going to go ahead and use Kintoki's own 50% charge skill there, as well as Oberon's 50% charge skill to bring him up to full and have him fire off the NP one last time. Now in the next scenario here, we instead have a 60% starting charge scenario with something like Knights and Marines. This is a really good craft essence for him to use. It's all attack scaling, gives 15% quick up. So it's definitely something he can benefit from. The Append is going to bring him up to 80% starting charge, and the only difference here is that we're going to be starting out with a front line of Oberon and Summer Skadi. You're only going to get one Summer Skadi's buffs on turn 1, but you're going to use Oberon's 20% charge here turn 1 to bring him up to full. He's going to fire off the NP that first time, kind of only get only like 9% refund back on that wave. And so as we end up in wave 2, he technically would have the 9%, be okay because it would round up if you actually did need the 10% flat, but we don't really care because we're going to go ahead and use one of the Skadi charge skills that'll bring him up to about 60%. We're going to rotate that Skadi, bring in the other Summer Skadi, use all of her buffs on him and her charge, and that's going to bring her up to 110%. So at that point, then we'll go ahead, fire off Kintoki's NP a second time, and he'll refund about 11% again and be kind of in the same scenario. So we're going to go ahead and use Kintoki's charge at that point, and then Oberon's charge at that point, and let him just kind of go to town and let him basically fire off the last NP, maybe pop Oberon's third skill and the Mystic Code as well there, but he should be quite capable of dishing a lot of damage. Now, taking a look at Kintoki's overall raw numbers here, on screen you guys can see these are his raw numbers, his non-effective, his neutral numbers. So these are not against an effective unit like, say, a caster for him. This is just in a neutral damage dealer environment, just for kind of keeping everything in a vacuum. Now, this doesn't include anything like support caster buffs, Mystic Code buffs, or even Craft Essence buffs. This is just Kintoki under the firepower of his own skills. Given the fact that he is a welfare, we're guaranteed to get NP5 of him, so we're looking at about 56k raw here. This is definitely nice and definitely a solid number to see. But he is a unit at this point in time where he's kind of gotten a little bit more competition. Some of the other riders around him have gotten buffs, and so this isn't the stellar number maybe that it once was, but it's still a solid amount. So taking a look now at the overall damage scenario in a proper composition, these are still neutral numbers, but these now include things like the support casters, as well as your, again, sort of craft essences and other things like a Mystic Code. Taking a look at this, you guys can see we have a Kintoki Rider, double Summer Skadi, Oberon, and level 100 Knights and Marines with a Neo Plug suit equipped. It's going to be the composition to make him 3-turn in that scenario, and just taking a look at his raw firepower, you can see the wave 3 Oberon spike damage there coming from Oberon's third skill, but still pretty solid damage there in terms of the amount of firepower you can get. Now, we also have a one-shot scenario so that you guys can calculate a little bit your one-shot damage potential. So this is, you're not 3-turning anymore, you just need the most firepower that you can get in any given turn, like say a raid scenario. This is where we're going to start swapping for something like Black Grail instead of Knights of Marines. And from there, you guys can see his 1-turn damage spikes up to about 756k. That is the insane difference that something like an MLB Black Grail can make, and that is one of the reasons why a lot of people really seek it out and try to use it. Now, how does he compare with other single targets kind of in his own niche? So Maid Alter is going to be another one that kind of he has gotten compared to for a long time, because Maid Alter was a unit that came out basically in Summer 2, right when Kintoki was also kind of being hot at that time. So Maid Alter is going to work with Summer Skadi and 2 times Oberon in order to start with a level 100k scope. We can force the 3-turn loop that way, but obviously it's not going to be too great. Maid Alter does kind of need a little bit of utility and some sort of upgrade at this point. Not so much in terms of damage. Her actual damage potential is insanely good. Doubly so if you start using things like the 5th Append and the Reloaded meme. But yes, that is kind of her issue, is being able to get back to another Noble Phantasm. You guys can see at NP1, wave 3 damage could be about 300k there. NP2, you're going to be looking at about 400k. And remember, you can pull off the Reloaded meme, but it's going to be difficult to do anything like that in a 3-turn with her. So taking a look at her 1-turn damage, obviously you get a little bit more firepower there, being able to substitute in the Black Grail, and she's going to be looking at about 616, but then at NP2, 822. So if you have that second copy of her, she's going to outshine Kintoki a little bit, but if you're stuck with just the one copy, Kintoki's going to win that battle. Ketz is very similar in how she's going to function, as she can kind of work with double coin Sky of Light, Oberon, and a level 100 cranking C for her best outcome. That is going to be a 50% charge Buster Welfare Craft Essence. And again, at NP1 on wave 3, she's going to be pumping 333k. Waves 1 and 2, though, going to be a little bit anemic due to the way that Ketz is going to kind of work there. She also can have the man trait due to Koyan, due to that synergy, but realistically speaking, Ketz doesn't have a trait of her own at that point to call her own. And at about NP2, she can spike up to about 444k on wave 3. Taking a look at Ketz's one-shot damage, she's kind of gonna struggle a little bit there. She does have the ability to also work with Black Grail and Koyanskaya and Oberon. You can do about 453k there at NP1, and then 521 with the man attribute from Koyan of Light, and then 604k at NP2. So you guys can see Ketz definitely sorely in need of that NP interlude to help her out. Ozzy, on the other hand, is somebody that actually has gotten attention from the devs, and it sure as crap shows. His best 3-turn scenario is going to be using another level 60, another 60% charge CE, level 100 Summer Anniversary with double Oberon and normal Koyanskaya of Light. You guys can see this scenario is going to pump out 670k by wave 3. It's going to be the first 2 waves yet again that are rather anemic for him. That's just going to kind of be the way that these units work in the Oberon setup. Double Oberon results in a lot of wave 3 damage, but not too much in wave 2 or wave 1, since you can't use his 3rd skill earlier on. And simultaneously there at NP2, he's going to be jumping all the way up to 838k by wave 3. Looking at Ozzy's one-shot damage, he'll end up being able to pump out 687k with a Black Grail equipped, and 859k at NP2, so quite insanely good damage output. But then I think probably one of the biggest comparisons that you will see is going to be Cinderella, aka Cinder Liz, if you will, a unit that is now also a welfare that happened with one of the Halloweens prior. So Cinderella is another unit that kind of was meant to replace Kintoki, at least prior to the Evocation Festival being a thing. It had been a long time since we had another single target welfare, and she definitely worked really good. We'll end up probably talking about her in a future video, but again, you guys can see she's going to work with a level 100 cranking for her starting charge, and she's going to work quite well with double Koyansky and Oberon, making her wave 1 and 2 not so anemic as some of the other units we just went over, and her wave 3 still being pretty decent there at 552k. She also has the Wild Beast niche, which can really amp her damage if you're able to take advantage of it. And again, she also can take advantage of man attribute due to the Koyanskaya synergy there. So quite a bit of firepower capable, especially if she can combine all of that stuff into one. Taking a look at Ellie's one-shot damage with Black Grail, you guys can see at NP5 there, she's going to be dealing about 611k. And remember, these are neutral numbers, so if it's effective, you get to double this number in effect. Wild Beast number going to go up to about 696. Man attribute 781, and combining both 866k. So Cinderella definitely a strong competitor to someone like Rider Kintoki. I think the biggest benefit that she's going to have, she does actually have hard survival baked into her kit, though she does require you to have that double Koyanskaya to kind of really function at a high capacity. That being said, Kintoki Rider is still really strong and doesn't require you necessarily to have Skadi. So how do you guys feel about Kintoki Rider nowadays? He's been out a long time. Do you guys still think he is worthy of all the hype, worthy of all the attention? And do you guys think that people should prioritize him with their Evocation Festival leaves? I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts. I will see you guys for the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. Hey, if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe, right? Golden